Good morning. We are back again wearing the same shirt that I was wearing yesterday. Probably just woke up, was getting my day started. Looking to do different things. So definitely going to be changing this shirt today. I've been really kind of contemplating a lot of things today. One of the biggest is I think in general, I think it's very easy for me to get overwhelmed at this very moment in the process of following my dreams. Let me fix this camera real quick. It's annoying me. Need to adjust it just a touch. Yeah, let y'all see the weird background going on back there. We're trying to keep it awesome looking. Yeah. So ultimately, it's like usually when I make it to this point, I'm looking off the edge of the ravine down into the void, and I'm like contemplating, like, do I jump off or do I turn back around and go back to my normal life? Usually, what happens is nothing. Usually, what happens is I don't go back to my normal life, and I don't proceed to, to pursue my goals. Usually, what happens is I get emotionally frantic, and I find different reasons not to succeed, and then I don't succeed, and then I find myself in a place where I wouldn't say I wouldn't necessarily be able to get out of, but definitely feels like I am on the way of painting myself into a corner. One of the things I'm doing to prevent that, I think this time around, is planning. I think planning is very important to anything that you're trying to do. Whether it's just getting your day started and going through your day and figuring out exactly what you have to do with your day, and using your time wisely throughout your day. You want to make a schedule. If you're trying to do something bigger, you're trying to write a comic book, you need a script. You need concept development, you need character design, you need all that stuff. And so on and so forth. So it's always been a challenge for me to kind of build a plan, because a lot of my plans a lot of my ideas that I want to do with my life are so massive. It's not like, hey, I want to be a videographer and I want to draw comic books. I want to really do something that's going to incite change in a way. It's gonna have some pretty big repercussions. That's the goal. So and it's been said multiple times, and I'm sure multiple people have said it, and I won't be the first to say it, but it's really about taking it apart piece by piece and doing what you can. That's what I've been focused on for quite a few days. I wouldn't say quite a few days, it's been a lot longer than that. I've worked in the last year, I would say. It's about gathering up all the information that I've created, about on the topic of what I want to create. So that was one part of really kind of gathering all that information together from OneNote, Google Drive, OneDrive, various different apps that I wrote in OneNote, in Word, Google Docs, really kind of compiling all that stuff and organizing and kind of seeing where I'm at. I think that's always a good place to start. I always try to figure out where you're at, where you're at in the process, where you're at in achieving your goal. A lot of times I think we're a lot closer than we are, but we don't assess to where we're exactly at. So it makes it feels like we're farther away than we actually are. Like in my case in point, I guess today, I was in a little bit of a tailspin when I first woke up this morning. Because I woke up late. As far as regards to getting to my job, and I was getting frantic and stuff because I started just really thinking about things. You know, oh, I need to pay for my medication. Oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do this, which are all legitimate concerns to have. But it goes back to why I originally started on this path to begin with. It's really kind of about like really exploring me and really living myself, living the idea I have of myself to the fullest. You know, really kind of moving beyond, you know, the self-imposed stigmas that I have on myself, you know, and really kind of pushing past all that stuff to say, you know, I'm going to do something bigger and better than I've ever done before. And like I said, part of that is really kind of in the planning, in the details, and really kind of understanding the tools and the necessary things that you need to do to achieve those goals. You know, so the basics I would say would be, you know, first make a list. That will always be the beginning of anything that you do related to kind of making a plan or really kind of trying to build something, is going to be making a list. This list can be varied depending on your situation. You know, I would say like if you're really trying to see what your goals are, like I am, really kind of make a list of what are your hobbies. You know, what kind of things do you like to do with your free time? And really kind of evaluate those things to see if it's something that you would like to carry on into an actual career or, you know, a funding stream. You know, the difference between those, like, I would say like a career would be something that you would devote, you know, your time to as far as like going to school to educate yourself or finding resources to educate yourself about that job, really kind of, you know, maybe doing internships and different things like that. But that list would consist of those steps to kind of taking your career, taking what you want to do and turning it into the career. You know, when I think about a funding stream, you know, that's a little bit different, you know, in the idea of, like, for me, instance, you know, if, you know, one, I'm a videographer and a photographer, you know, that is a hobby that I turned into a career, basically. And the idea that I went from saying, you know what, I like shooting on my phone, I like making videos on my phone, I like doing that, so I'm going to go to school, and then I'm going to purchase me a camera, and then I'm going to start shooting and making content, and yada, 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 and so on and so forth. That's pursuing it as a career. You know, pursuing it as a funding source, in my mind, would look something like you may not own a camera, but you do drop shipping on sites like Amazon, you know, eBay and various other sites that allow you to, you know, maybe look at a product and say you want to sell this product and take a picture of it and then post it and sell it. And then, like, when it comes time for that product to be delivered, it will be delivered directly from that source that is providing it. So say like if you wanted to do like lens adapters, you know, little small rings that adapts your lenses, that adapts your filter to the camera lens and stuff like that. You know, you could buy like a whole box of those and, you know, sell them and brand them and stuff and sell them as your own thing. And, you know, there's lots of different ways to really kind of take and say, you know what, I may not have the education to use these tools, but I am well versed enough to say I can offer some opinion as what a better thing might be to use to get it done type of situation. You know, it's ultimately, I think ultimately one of the things that I'm looking at overall is the fact that I do have a wealth of information to provide to different people, different clients, different situations, different things like that. I'm really trying to consider like how to monetize that in a way that won't feel dirty. You know, I don't feel like I'm being manipulative, or I don't feel like I'm offering a service that is not adequate to what people are looking for. You know, I don't want to do that. You know, as far as like me being educational, it'll probably be in a situation where I would look at, you know, possibly making like different classes and different things like that to, you know, and Skillshare. There's all kinds of different things. And I think to really kind of narrow back down to the point of really going from the idea of wanting to do something to actually doing something, I think it's really kind of just saying that you're going to make the first steps to do that. For me, in some ways, it was like moving on beyond the job that I've had to where I'm at now, and kind of like a holding pattern where I have to now decide to make the step that I need to make. It's very easy, I think, in situations like this, and the idea of when you're in transition, to be caught up into what's going to happen next, what am I going to do, and getting caught up in the idea of wanting to regress back to that situation that you're trying to move away from. But I think it's really kind of like understanding, like I said, the process of what it takes to go from point A to point B. A lot of times we talk about going from point A to point B, but there's a good long stretch between point A and point B, and that not kind of is a mental stretch. It's a really kind of like acclimating to yourself that you're going to do what it is that you're going to set out to do. For me, I've been shooting videos and thinking about videos and editing videos for the last couple of days nonstop, and that was to really kind of solidify the fact that this is what I'm doing. This is what it's about. There'll probably be a relatively large celebration when I nail my first client, make that first transaction and all this stuff like that. But I think the joy in it for me right now is just saying that, basically I accept my fate. I accept that that I have made a choice that is going to dictate the rest of my life, and I can use that in a positive way. I could look towards the future in a positive way and say that I have different skill sets, I have a creative mind, and no matter what the landscape and how it changes, I can adapt to do what it is that I love to do, which is ultimately help people with my creativity. Help people live their dreams and such. Really kind of find out in the baseline of who they are as a person. That's the stuff that I like to do. So like I've said in the last video, this is all about first understanding like who I am, what do I need to do to survive, what it is that exactly that I want to do to fulfill my need to help people with my creativity. I guess that's really kind of getting deep into the exploration of that, and that starts today. It's going to require me to really not be lazy, because I think that's the difference between, for me, I think that's one of the differences between working a 9-to-5 job versus, being an entrepreneur or creative or anything like that. Because it's very easy, to get complacent, when you have a check coming in on a regular basis, and, you can look ahead and say, next week I'm going to go do this, or 2 weeks from now I'm going to do this, or it's slightly different when it's about building a certain amount of wealth to achieve a certain amount of goal, which is different from the idea, I think, which really comes down to basically waiting on resources. And I think that's really kind of the switch that's flipping, is it's like now it's no longer about looking for a job. It's about saying, this is what it is. What elements do I have to work on to achieve my goals? And it does very much depend on me making a list and scheduling things. Eventually, I want to get a whiteboard to have a visual representation of of the goals that I want to achieve. So I would say, as a helpful hint to kind of pursuing your dreams and looking forward, look at what elements it's going to take for you to compile a list. What is that going to look like for you? Is that going to be digital? Are you a person who is going to be willing to look at your digital calendar every day? And are you going to be able to acknowledge the alarms when they go off on your phone? You know, or are you a person who needs to get up every day and, X off the day on a calendar, on a physical calendar that you write on every day? All those things are important, to the process of succeeding. Really understanding like what kind of elements that you need to succeed are going to play a big part into, moving forward and, achieving your goals. So it really does, I would say the first list that you have to write and the first list that you probably should create if you are seeking to really kind of step out and do something different that you've never done before is really evaluate those things that make you happy and those things that you can convert, that you can monetarily convert into something that's going to benefit you. Or things that you can do that may not be, get a monetary reward, but may further your brand by, enlightening people on who you are. That's really the reason why I'm doing these live streams. I think it's very important at this time period for people to understand the perspective that I have as I create the things that I create. Because a lot of, there's one big thing that I'm working on that is going to be highly controversial, and it's probably going to ruffle a lot of feathers when it comes out and things like that, and with the current climate, I have to be realistic that people are going to interpret it the way that they interpret it. And the best case scenario for me is to document these moments leading up to the release of that, as well as the process of making it and developing it and all kinds of other things, Along with that, it really is adopting the moniker of being a social justice warrior, It does have its non-negative connotations to it, A lot of times it's used in a negative way, by people who may not align with that kind of talking point. But for me, when I hear the word social justice warrior, it sounds pretty good to me. It sounds like an action hero type of thing, So I'm very much about that life. So as I move forward, it really kind of is discovering those things, really kind of is discovering how to best fulfill the dreams that I have, how to move forward and really kind of help people discover what it is they want to do and how to make that happen for them, with the best ways that I can. So that's really what it's about. I think there are a lot of rocky roads ahead. I do not deny that. I think that's always a thing that you have to really kind of realize about the situation is what is actually happening. I think that is probably the biggest thing that you could possibly do, is really kind of like come down from the clouds of, saying, you made a decision to really kind of move forward in your life and, really kind of, curb the euphoria and really kind of bring yourself down to reality to see where it is that you're at, what it is that you're doing, what do you need to move forward? Because it's very easy to get caught up in the idea of saying, I'm going to do something big to, live my life and stuff. I'm going to reshape my whole environment, or what have you, or I'm going to rebel against the machine and stuff like that. But the reality of the situation is that you still have to eat, you still have to buy clothes, you still have to pay your cell phone bill, you still have to do those things. If you have kids, you got to make sure they eat, you got to make sure they have clothes, you got to make sure they get back and forth to school, you got to do all that stuff. So ultimately, you still have to live your regular life in the midst of pursuing your dreams. So when you come back to reality, you have to be okay with the fact that your dream is still going to be there despite having to do what you have to do to live. And I think that's where I'm at right now, is understanding that even though I want to do what I want to do, I still have to pay bills, I still have to eat, and I still have to pay for my medication. So it's really about looking into those elements and saying, what am I going to do about those things? What am I going to do in between now and getting my first client. How am I going to raise funds? What kind of work am I going to pursue? Am I going to be trying to sell things? What kind of things do I need to do to sell those things? All that stuff. There's a lot. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different elements going on at play. I definitely recommend that you look into ways to emotionally stabilize. I think that's another big one that we don't consider, is emotional stabilization. Will really enlighten to a lot of different things as it relates to what you want to pursue, how you want to pursue it, the elements you need to pursue it, all that good stuff. And that all starts with various different elements, but it all comes back to, and I cannot say this enough, by creating a list, by writing down the elements that you need to understand to move forward, and really kind of list them in a way that is going to allow you to be successful and really kind of interpreting what it is that you want to do. And with that being said, I'm going to get back to drinking my coffee and puffing and passing to myself. You have a great day, be blessed, and stay protected.